Evolution of emotion. In this mutual understanding, or at least the illusion of mutual understanding, in the immersion of similar emotions lies one of the principal charms of love. The French novelist Guy de Maupassant wrote about the matter in his short story, Solitude. The same illusion explains the secret power of alcohol over the human soul, for alcohol creates the illusion of a communion of spirit and induces similar fantasies simultaneously, in two or several people. Emotions are the stained glass windows of the soul, colored glass through which the soul looks at the world. Each such glass assists in finding in the contemplated object the same or similar colors, but it also prevents the discovery of opposites. Therefore, this has been correctly described as a one-sided emotional illumination which cannot give the correct perception of any object. Nothing gives one such a clear idea of things as the emotions, yet nothing can delude one so much either. Every emotion has a meaning for its existence, although its value from the standpoint of knowledge varies considerably. Certain emotions are important and necessary for the life of knowledge, and certain emotions hinder rather than help one to understand. Theoretically, all emotions are an aid to knowledge. All emotions arise because of the knowledge of one or other thing. So let us then consider one of the most elementary emotions, the emotion of fear. Undoubtedly, there are relations that can be known only through fear. An individual who never experienced the sensation of fear will fail to understand many things in life and in nature. They will never understand many of the controlling motives in the life of man. What else but the fear of hunger and cold forces the majority of us to work? We shall fail to understand many things in the animal world, for example the relation of mammals to reptiles. A snake excites a feeling of fear and repulsion in all mammals. By this repulsion and fear a mammal knows the nature of the snake, and the relation of that nature to its own nature. It knows this correctly but strictly personally, and only from its own perspective. However, what the snake is in itself, the animal never knows by the emotion of fear. What the snake is in itself, not the philosophical meaning of the thing in itself, nor from the perspective of the individual or animal whom it has bitten or may bite, but simply from the standpoint of zoology, which can be known from the intellect only. Emotions unite with the different eyes of our psyche. Emotions apparently similar can be united with very small eyes and with very great and lofty eyes. Hence the role and meaning of such emotions in life may be very different. The continual shifting of emotions, each of which calls itself I, and strives to establish power over man, is the chief obstacle to the establishment of a constant I. This particularly interferes when the emotions are manifesting in, and passing through the regions of the psyche connected with a certain kind of self-consciousness and self-assertion. These are the so-called personal emotions. A sign of the growth of emotions is their liberation from personal element, and sublimation on higher planes. Liberation from personal element augments the cognitive power of emotions because the more there are of pseudo-personal elements in emotion, the greater the possibility of delusion. Personal emotion is always partial, always unjust by reason of the fact that it opposes itself to all the rest. The cognitive power of emotions grow greater proportionately as there are fewer self-elements, i.e. more awareness that this emotion is not the I. It has been noted previously in studying space and its laws, that the evolution of knowledge consists of a gradual withdrawal from oneself. Hinton expressed this adequately in writing, where he stated that only by withdrawing from ourselves do we begin to comprehend the world as it really is. The system of mental exercises with colored cubes developed by Hinton aims at the training of consciousness, to look at things from somewhere other than the pseudo-personal viewpoint. When we study a block of cubes, writes Hinton, say a Rubik's cube containing 27 lesser cubes, we firstly learn that by starting from a particular cube and axis, learning how 26 others are situated with regard to that cube, we learn the block with regard to this axis, so that we can mentally conceive the position of every cube as it comes, regarded from one point of view. Next we suppose ourselves to be in another cube at the extremity of another axis, and looking from this axis learn the aspect of all the other cubes in relation to it and so on. Thus we impress upon the feelings what the block of cubes is like from every axis, and in this way acquire complete knowledge of the block of cubes. Now, to acquire knowledge such as this of humanity, we must study it from the viewpoint of the individuals of which it is composed. The egoist may be compared with the man who knows a cube from only one standpoint. Those who feel superficially with a great many people are like the learners who have a slight acquaintance with the block of cubes from many points of view. Those who have a few deep attachments, close acquaintances, are like those who know the block of cubes from only 1 or 2 points of view. Perhaps the difference between the good and the rest of us lies in the former being more aware. There is something outside of them which draws them to it, which they see while we do not. End quote. C.H. Hinton, A New Era of Thought, see pages 77 and 78. Just as it is incorrect, in relation to oneself, to evaluate everything from the standpoint of one emotion, contrasting it with all the rest, then so too is it incorrect, in relation to the world and others, to evaluate everything from the standpoint of one's own accidental I, contrasting oneself of a given moment with the rest. Hence the problem of correct emotional knowledge consists of the fact that one should feel in relation to the world and others, from some standpoint other than the personal. The broader the circle becomes for which a person feels, the deeper becomes the knowledge their emotions yield. But not all emotions are of equal potency in liberating from self-elements. Certain emotions from their very nature are disruptive and separative, alienating and forcing us to feel ourselves as individualized or separate. Examples of this are hatred, jealousy, pride and envy. These are emotions of a materialistic order, forcing a belief in matter. Nescience. Then there are emotions that are unifying, harmonizing and making us feel ourselves to be a part of some greater whole, such as love, sympathy, friendship, compassion, patriotism, naturalism, humanism, spiritualism and so on. These emotions lead us out from the material world and reveal the truth of the world, the wondrous. Emotions of this nature liberate more easily from self-elements than those of the former class. Nevertheless, there can also be quite impersonal pride, the pride in some heroic deed, accomplished by another. There can even be impersonal envy, when we envy one who has conquered themselves, conquered their personal desire to live, sacrificed themselves for that which everyone considers to be right and just, but which we cannot bring ourselves to do, cannot even think of doing, because of weakness, out of love of life and so on. There can be impersonal hatred, of injustice, or brutality, anger against stupidity, dullness, aversion to nastiness, sarcasm and hypocrisy. These feelings undoubtedly elevate and purify the soul of man, helping him to see things that he would not otherwise see. Christ driving the money changers out of the temple or expressing his opinion about the Pharisees was not entirely meek and mild. So there are cases when meekness and mild manners are not virtues at all. Emotions of love, sympathy and pity transform themselves readily into sentimentality and weakness, where thus transformed they contribute of course to nescience and matter. The difficulty of dividing emotions into categories is increased by the fact that all emotions of the higher order without exception can also be personal, and then their action partakes of the nature of this class. There is a natural division of emotions into pure and impure. We all know this and we all use these words, but understand little of what they mean. So truly, what does pure and impure mean with regard to feelings? Common morality divides a priori all emotions into pure and impure according to certain awkward signs, just as Noah divided the animals in his ark. All desires of the flesh fall into the category of the impure. However, in reality, desires of the flesh are just as pure as everything else in nature. Nevertheless, emotions are pure and impure. We know well enough that there is truth in this classification, but where is it and what does it mean? Only an analysis of the emotions from the standpoint of knowledge can provide the key. Impure emotion is quite the same thing as impure glass, impure water or impure sound, i.e. emotion which is not pure, but containing sediments, deposits or echoes of other emotions, ergo mixed emotions. Impure emotion gives obscure and not pure knowledge, just as impure glass gives a confused image. Pure emotion gives a clear, pure image of that for the knowledge of which it is intended. This is the only possible answer to the question. The arrival at this conclusion saves us from the common mistake of moralists, who divide arbitrarily all emotion into moral and immoral. But if we try for a moment to separate emotions from the usual moral framework, then we shall see that matters are considerably simpler, that there are no in their nature pure emotions, nor impure. Each emotion will be pure or impure according to whether or not there are admixtures of other emotions commingling within it. There can be a pure sensuality, the sensuality of the Song of Songs, which initiates into the sensation of cosmic life and gives one power to hear the pulse of nature. There can also be an impure sensuality, mixed with other emotions, good or bad from a moral standpoint, clouding the fundamental feeling. There can be pure sympathy, and there can be sympathy mixed with calculation to perceive something for one's sympathy. There can be pure love of knowledge, a thirst for knowledge for its own sake, and there can be an inclination for knowledge wherein considerations of utility or profit assume the chief importance. In their outer manifestation, pure and impure emotions may differ very little. Two men may be playing chess, acting outwardly very similar, but one will burn self-love, desire of victory, and he will be filled with unpleasant feelings toward his rival, fear, envy of a clever move, spite, jealousy, animosity, or schemes to win, while his opponent will simply enjoy solving a complex mathematical problem which lies before him, not thinking about his rival at all. The emotion of the first man will be impure, if only because it is so mixed. The emotion of the second will be pure. Examples of a division of outwardly similar emotions may constantly be seen in the aesthetic, literary, scientific, public, political, media, entertainment, and even the spiritual and religious activities of men. In all regions of this activity, only complete victory over the pseudo-personal elements leads one to the correct understanding of the world and of themselves. All emotions colored by such self-elements are like concave, convex, or otherwise curved lenses which refract rays incorrectly and distort the image of the world. The problem of emotional knowledge therefore consists of a corresponding preparation of the emotions that serve as the organs of knowledge. Become as little children, and blessed are the pure in heart. In these evangelical words is expressed primarily the idea of the purification of emotions. Therefore, in the interests of a correct understanding of the world and of the self, we should undertake the purification and the elevation of our emotions. This last leads to an entirely new view of morality. That morality, the aim of which is to establish a system of correct relations toward our emotions, to assist in their purification and elevation, ceases in our eyes to be some wearisome and self-limiting exercise in virtue. Morality is a form of aesthetics. That which is not moral is not beautiful, not concordant, and not harmonious. We can see the meaning that morality may have in our life, and see the meaning that morality has for knowledge quite simply because there are emotions by which we know, and there are emotions by which we delude ourselves. If morality can actually help us to analyze and understand these, then its value is indisputable from the standpoint of knowledge. Current popular psychology knows well enough how much malice, hatred, anger, and jealousy can blind a person and darken their reason. It knows that fear and paranoia can drive one insane. However, we also know that every emotion can serve either knowledge or nay science. Let's consider then such an emotion valuable and capable of high development as the pleasure of activity. This emotion is a powerful and motive force in culture and of service in the perfection of life and the evolution of all higher faculties in man. However, it is also the cause of an infinite number of our delusions and faux pas for which we afterward pay bitterly. In the passion of activity, we are easily inclined to forget the aim that initiated our action in the first place. To accept the activity itself for the aim, and even to sacrifice the aim in order to preserve the activity. This is seen with particular clarity in the activity of various spiritual movements. Man, starting out in one direction, turns in the opposite one without himself noticing it, often descending into the abyss while thinking that he is actually scaling the heights. There is nothing more contradictory and more paradoxical than one who is enticed away by activity. We have become so accustomed to the activities of man that the strange perversions to which he is sometimes subject fail to startle our curiosity. violence in the name of freedom or democracy, violence in the name of love, the gospel of Christian crusaders with sword and torch in hand, the stakes of the Inquisition for the glory of a God of mercy, the oppression of thought and speech on the part of the ministers of religion. All of these are incarnated absurdities of which humanity only is capable. A correct understanding of morality can preserve us in some degree from such perversions of thought. In our life generally there is little sign of morality. Western culture has gone along the path of intellectual development. The intellect invented and organized without considering the moral meaning of its own activity. Out of this arose the paradox that the crown of Western culture is the dreadnought. Many people realize this and on account of it assume a negative attitude towards all culture. However, this is unjust. Western culture created a great deal other than dreadnoughts that is new and valuable, facilitating life and the politics of green. The elaboration of the principles of freedom and rights, the abolition of slavery. Though these are indeed minimal, the victory of humankind in many regions where nature presented to us a hostile environment, the methods available for the distribution of thought, the efficiencies of modern engineering and transportation, the miracles of contemporary medicine and surgery, communication, power and utility, all of these are indisputably real conquests and it is impossible not to take them into consideration. However, in them there is no morality, there is no truth and too much of falsehood. We are satisfied with mere principles as such and content to think that eventually they will be introduced into modern life. We neither marvel, nor are we disturbed at the thought that we ourselves as so-called cultured humanity developing beautiful principles, continually deny and pervert them in our lives. The man of Western culture invents with equal ease a machine gun and a new surgical apparatus. European culture began from the life of the savage. However, taking the 20th century as an example, we pushed back all of its frontiers to the utmost without thinking of their moral aspects. The savage crushed the head of his enemy with a simple club or rock. Yet today we possess the technology to obliterate not only mankind and all biological life as we know it, but our entire planet. Aerial navigation and intercontinental flight was something that mankind had looked forward to for centuries and finally achieved. However, it was used first for the purposes of war. Morality should be the coordination and the necessity for coordination of all sides of life, the actions of man and humanity with the higher emotions, and the higher comprehension of the intellect. From this point of view, the statement previously made that morality is a form of aesthetics becomes clearer. Aesthetics, the sense of beauty, is the sensation of the relation of parts to the whole, and the perception of the necessity for a certain harmonious relationship. Morality is the same. Those actions, thoughts and feelings are not moral that are not coordinated, that are not harmonious with the higher understanding and the higher sensations accessible to man. The introduction of morality into our lives would make it less paradoxical, less contradictory, more logical and most importantly, more civilized. Our vaunted civilization is much compromised by dreadnoughts, by war, by greed and everything that goes with it, as well as by many instruments of peaceful coexistence such as the death penalty and judiciary or penal and even health system.